How should India be reading the possible impact of this particular meeting, especially on the India-US tariff negotiations?
You talking to me?
Yes, this is for you,
Okay.
Dr. Bankin.
Sorry. I think those negotiations are going to go forward. Exactly the form it takes will depend on what happens with the United States and Russia. No doubt for India, seeing good relations between the United States and Russia is something beneficial, and I think they can take a lot of credit for that if that happens. However, I think we want to keep something else in mind. And here's a vulnerability the United States has vis-a-vis India. For the last several months at least, there has been a market transition whereby many American companies have been moving out of China and into India. For instance, I just got a new iPhone, and when I got it, I said to the person, "I'll bet it's made in India," because India now, not China, is the greatest source of iPhones to the United States. We're starting to see a lot of that change. If India is faced with all sorts of penalties, if the American companies that now set up in India are faced with all sorts of penalties, that's going to create even more dislocation than putting the secondary tariffs on China and not giving them the same sort of access they were used to the American consumer market. I think those trade negotiations will go on. I think they'll go on well. I think one way or another, India is going to be able to demand a fair deal. And I think they're going to get it. And I think President Trump, as well as Prime Minister Modi, are going to be very happy with that.
Alison, you agree to what Dr. Bankin said? Also, if these talks, they are successful, do you think the bettering of the ties between US and Russia, do you think it is going to complicate or strengthen India's balancing act? How do you look at it?
I don't necessarily think it will complicate India's balancing act because the issue will come from what are the U.S. strategic interests and what are the Russia's strategic interests. And there's plenty of other locations in the world where they come head to head or that are seen as slightly more valuable. Where India has been strategic to the United States is with the Indo-Pacific strategy and how they're dealing with China. So in that sense, the future of U.S.-Chinese relations, I think, will also factor into the U.S.-India relationship. And it can't just be defined by how the U.S. and Russia are working, but you also have the Chinese component to that. And then with the U.S.-Russia angle, all of the other places in the world where the U.S. and Russia either have competing interests or common interests, like Middle East, Syria, Israel issues, South Caucasus that have been going on, Venezuela, and so many moving pieces with this really important bilateral relationship that India is one of the key components. But there's so many moving parts that there's a lot of variables that could impact how India comes out of this. But in general, they should be okay because they're not the primary target.
Okay, Dr. Bankin, I also want to talk about Donald Trump's ambitions, personal ambitions, especially with respect to the Nobel Peace Prize. How much of this particular summit is about Trump's personal political legacy, including the talks about the Nobel Peace Prize versus genuine conflict resolution?
Well, I think it would be foolish to discount that factor entirely. I do believe, however, that if anyone is expecting Donald Trump to basically give Vladimir Putin a store so he can say, look, I ended this war and now give me the Nobel Peace Prize, I think that would be rather foolish. And as I said, it would be foolish to discount that. I want to mention something else on the last. Besides, I think Ms. Frederica was absolutely correct in what she said. I will also mention that India is poised to become the Asian giant, economically, militarily, and you don't do that by tying yourself to a dying power like Russia, demographically, economically, or even thinking militarily. They're in trouble. But in fact, you develop that stronger relationship with a rising power, which seems to be the United States at this point. So again, I think whatever happens today India is going to be able to play its hand very, very well. And I think when Prime Minister Modi visited the United States not long ago, and President Trump said, he's a tougher negotiator than I am. I think that was a compliment. I think that was rather accurate. I think India is going to come out very well with this, and India will emerge some point as the dominant power in Asia.
All right, Dr. Richard Benkin and Alison Federica, thank you very much for breaking it down for us, for explaining all of this and listening to me patiently. Thank you very much. This is in fact a very high stakes meeting that is taking place in Alaska. The entire world, it is holding its breath. The US President Donald Trump and the Russian President Vladimir Putin sitting down for this pivotal summit in Alaska.
NDTV 24/7 is India's #1